You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Imagine a high-stakes poker game where 5 players hold 75% of all the chips at the table.
Right.
And everyone else in the room is quite literally fighting over the blinds. I mean, that is exactly what the venture capital market looks like.
It is wild.
It really is. 75% of all deployed venture capital is going to just 5 companies.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you look at where the limited partners are actually putting their money, 73% of their commitments went to exactly 5 top-tier funds.
That is just, that is a staggering level of consolidation.
It is not a typo. The money has concentrated so intensely that almost everyone else is just running on fumes.
Which completely breaks the fundamental mechanics of how new technology companies are built.
Exactly. And we're going to pull apart exactly what that means for you. I am your host for Vocal Technologist, the tech-savvy Australian mate who tries to make these dense industry shifts actually make sense.
And I am here to help analyze the data.
Scott on. My analytical co-host always helps me look under the hood of these trends. The mission here is to explore what happens to the tech industry when all the money gets sucked into a handful of massive black holes.
And more importantly, how founders are actually adapting to this brutal new reality.
Because it is genuinely unforgiving out there.
It really is. If we look at the pitch book data, total deal volume has collapsed to historic lows.
Wait, historic lows?
Yes, completely bottomed out. But at the exact same time, we are seeing these massive mega rounds for frontier artificial intelligence companies.
Right, the OpenAI and Anthropic rounds.
Exactly. You have those organizations absorbing record amounts of cash. So it is not that the capital has disappeared.
It's just hiding.
Well, investors have just become entirely averse to risk outside of one very specific category.
I reckon the best way to picture this is to imagine the venture capital market as a solar system.
Okay, I like this.
Right, so suddenly 5 massive black holes appear and just start sucking up all the matter, all the light, all the energy. And every other startup out there is basically a rat scrambling for whatever space dust is left over.
That is a perfect analogy, and it explains why the traditional startup playbook is just, well, it was entirely broken.
Because the old way was so predictable, right?
It was an escalator. You raise a seed round, you build a minimum viable product, you raise a Series A, find your product market fit, and then raise a Series B to scale.
But right now, founders who are not building core artificial intelligence models are navigating a completely depleted middle market.
There is almost zero follow-on capital available.
So if you are a founder who raised a seed round a year ago and you are relying on that Series A bridge to survive,
you are essentially driving off a cliff.
Because the bridge simply does not exist anymore.
Precisely. The limited partners, meaning the pension funds and university endowments that supply the money, they are looking at the market.
And they are getting picky.
Very. They're deciding that if they are going to take venture risks, it better be for a company capable of creating artificial general intelligence.
Everything else looks like a bad bet to them.
Exactly. Which means companies cannot just burn cash while they experiment anymore. They actually have to fundamentally restructure their entire operation just to survive.
And that brings us to something that is getting heaps of attention. People are calling it Dorsey mode.
Yes, the Jack Dorsey restructuring.
Right. He reduced the staff at Block by 40%.
Which is massive.
It is huge.
Yeah.
A 40% cut at a company of that scale is not just trimming the fat. That is taking an axe to the entire organizational chart.
It is a profound, proactive organizational redesign. What Dorsey is anticipating is that artificial intelligence is going to significantly automate middle management.
The middle managers are definitely sweating right now.
Oh, absolutely. He is targeting what we historically call context-carrying roles. He is flattening the hierarchy down to just 2 or 3 layers.
Okay, let us elevate this concept of context-carrying roles for a second. For a long time, companies operated with massive information asymmetry.
Right. The left hand did not know what the right hand was doing.
Exactly. You had engineering teams who understood technical constraints, and you had executive teams who understood business goals. But they spoke completely different languages.
So companies hired human routers.
Yes,
Yeah.
people whose entire job was essentially taking an update from an engineering pod, translating it into a PowerPoint presentation, and explaining it to the executives.
They were resolving information asymmetry. But what is fascinating here is that artificial intelligence serves as a zero-latency universal translator.
So you remove those 5 layers of management.
Exactly. The founders and the visionary leaders are directly connected to the builders. You do not need human context carriers because a digital assistant can instantly summarize highly technical progress into an executive summary.
And it goes the other way too, right?
Yes, it can instantly translate an executive business strategy into actionable technical tasks. The communication latency drops to 0.
But hang on, mate. I have to push back here.
Okay, go ahead.
Have you ever actually seen an executive try to prompt an artificial intelligence?
I have.
Half of them can barely write a coherent Slack message to their own team. Are we really saying a digital assistant can interpret vague executive jargon and somehow steer a team of engineers?
That is a completely fair point of skepticism, but that is actually the beauty of the shift.
How so?
The artificial intelligence does not require a perfect prompt from the executive. It has access to the entire context of the business.
Oh, I see. It already knows the background.
Exactly. It sees the code base, the customer support tickets, the financial models. It acts as an interpretive layer.
So it fills in the blanks.
It can ask the executive clarifying questions, formulate a precise technical specification, and then distribute that to the engineering team.
Which means writing the actual code is no longer the bottleneck.
Right. The real battle is shifting entirely. Dorsey mode is about recognizing that software creation is becoming a commodity.
So you have to move your resources downstream.
Exactly. You take the millions you were spending on layers of management, and you funnel it strictly into sales and distribution channels.
Because apparently that is where we are now. The pressure on founders is just immense.
If you cannot rely on endless funding rounds, you have to embrace what Khazar Yunus from Applied Intuition calls radical pragmatism.
Radical pragmatism. That is such a crucial concept for this era.
Khazar argues that founders must make decisions based on their actual reality rather than just blindly copying what massive tech giants are doing.
It sounds obvious, but you would be surprised how many startups try to play dress up as Google.
They try to mimic the organizational structure, the perks, or the compensation models of companies sitting on trillion-dollar valuations.
Which straight up does not work when you are fighting for space dust.
Khazar also talks about compensating teams based on actual company values, right?
Yes, to make them real. For example, if you say your company values shipping products fast, but your bonus structure rewards 0 defects and punishing people for minor bugs.
Your values are just empty words on a wall.
You get exactly what you measure and what you reward. He also makes a brilliant point about the true utility of raising money. Because we usually just think of venture capital purely as cash in the bank to pay salaries.
But in a market where capital is incredibly scarce, raising money sends a powerful psychological signal.
It signals to your employees that their equity actually has a future.
And it signals to your competitors that you have the war chest to outlast them.
And crucially, it tells your enterprise customers that you are going to be around in 5 years to support the software they just bought.
Right. But raising money for survival only solves half the equation.
Because if your core product is becoming obsolete, having a full bank account just means you die a little bit slower.
Exactly. Which is exactly what the leadership at Mutiny realized.
Honestly, this is one of the craziest stories we have to get into. Mutiny literally killed an 8-figure software as a service business.
We are talking tens of millions in annual recurring revenue.
Yes. They had massive enterprise clients like Uber and Snowflake. They had top-tier backing from Sequoia, Insight, and Tiger.
And they walked away from all of it.
Completely walked away to pivot and go entirely all in on artificial intelligence.
It is a remarkable story of radical pragmatism in action. Most leadership teams would fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy.
They would look at that 8-figure revenue stream and try to protect it at all costs,
ignoring the structural changes happening around them.
But wait, how does a moat like that just evaporate? They had Uber as a client. Why walk away from a literal money printer?
Because the nature of enterprise software is fundamentally changing. Software as a service relies on standardization.
Right, you build one rigid workflow and sell it to 10,000 companies.
Exactly. Your moat is the fact that it is too expensive and difficult for those companies to build the software themselves.
But that is changing now.
Yes. When foundational models become capable of instantly generating a bespoke integration that perfectly matches a client's internal processes, your out-of-the-box product loses its premium.
Oh, wow. I see. The enterprise client can just ask their own digital assistant to build the exact tool they need,
rather than paying a huge subscription fee for a rigid product.
That is wild. So Mutiny saw that their distribution advantage was entirely temporary.
They realized that waiting around for the revenue to slowly bleed out as clients built their own internal tools would be fatal.
So instead of defending a shrinking castle, they abandoned it to build a new one.
Exactly.
It is terrifying to walk into a board meeting and tell top-tier investors that you are turning off the money printer.
It takes a lot of guts.
But if you cannot raise money because it is all going to 5 massive companies and you cannot rely on your old software mode, you have to win on distribution.
You have to get incredibly creative with how you sell and scale.
And the story of Cal AI is a perfect illustration of this radical pragmatism applied to distribution.
The Cal AI case study is fascinating. It highlights the extreme lengths founders will go to bypass traditional toll booths.
So they hit $50 million in annual recurring revenue, and it ended up selling for around $250 million.
But the interesting part is how they operated. Apple actually pulled them from the App Store.
Because Cal AI was using in-app payment sheets to dodge Apple's mandatory 30% fee.
Yeah, Apple does not mess around when it comes to their 30% cut.
It is an enormous tax on any software business.
Yeah.
It is like Cal AI decided to dig a secret underground tunnel right under the king's tax collectors.
It is a great analogy. Let us look at the actual mechanics of that tunnel because it is a legal loophole that savvy founders use.
How does it actually work?
The strategy is to charge users on the open web via a payment processor like Stripe.
Okay, so off the phone entirely.
Exactly. And then they deep link those paying users directly into the mobile application.
Oh, that is clever.
Apple owns the toll booth on the app itself, but Stripe owns the highway on the web.
So by converting the user on the web and essentially teleporting them into the app via a targeted link, the revenue never touches the iOS payment ecosystem.
You are legally bypassing the toll booth while still driving on the King's roads.
And for a startup operating in a cash-starved environment, mate, a 30% margin improvement is the difference between life and death.
It means you can spend 30% more on customer acquisition than your competitors.
The ones who are stubbornly paying the Apple tax.
And we see that exact same pragmatism applied to the acquisition phase. Look at Louis Blankenmeyer.
Right. He founded a medical imaging artificial intelligence startup.
Historically, the playbook would be to spend 18 months pitching venture capitalists.
Trying to raise a seed round, taking forever.
And then spending years trying to sell the software to individual hospitals.
Instead, he just sold the company shortly after founding it.
Just skip the entire venture capital circus entirely.
It makes perfect sense when you think about it. Building a product is hard enough.
Building an enterprise sales motion from scratch, navigating complex medical regulations, all while starving for capital.
That is a recipe for burning out straight up.
Exactly. He accepted an acquisition offer from Radiology Partners.
So he leveraged their massive existing resources.
He immediately gained access to their distribution network and their regulatory compliance frameworks.
By selling early, he got his product integrated into real clinical settings almost instantly.
He bypassed the entire venture capital toll booth to get his product to market.
It is incredibly smart. I mean, why fight for a tiny sliver of funding to build a sales team when you can just plug your technology directly into a massive existing network?
It is a reflection of how the technology itself is forcing structural changes. We talked about how Dorsey mode is flattening the organizational chart.
Yeah, cutting out the middle managers.
Well, the technology stack is flattening too. We are seeing a massive shift in how these tools actually operate.
Moving away from individual agents.
Yes. Yeah. The industry is moving away from the concept of individual, disconnected artificial intelligence agents and moving toward what they are calling harnesses.
Okay, a harness. What does that actually look like in practice for someone sitting at their desk?
Think about how you work right now. You probably have 50 tabs open.
Always.
You are copying text from a document, pasting it into a separate chat window to be summarized, taking that output, and manually placing it into a slide deck.
It is highly fragmented.
A harness is an omniscient digital layer that sits across your entire operating system.
So it sees everything.
It is a single unified interface that has context across your emails, your spreadsheets, your code repositories, and your calendar.
And it executes the entire workflow seamlessly without you having to manually move data between silos.
Exactly.
Which honestly sounds brilliant. But how are founders actually using these harnesses on a tactical level to survive this completely starved market?
The smartest operators are treating the artificial intelligence as a fully delegated resource, not just a brainstorming buddy.
Okay, give me an example.
Anthropic released guidance on how to best use Claude Opus. They explicitly recommend treating it as a delegated engineer rather than a pair programmer.
Oh, right. So instead of sitting there line by line holding his hand while it types, You write a comprehensive technical specification.
You hand it over and say, go build this feature and come back when it's compiling.
You give it broad context, a specific goal, and actual autonomy.
Precisely. And teams are pushing this autonomy even further to improve their unit economics.
Like the sales call thing.
Yes. There is a great example of a founder who built an integration that critiques them after every single sales call.
The system listens to the recording and immediately provides brutal, actionable feedback on their performance.
It is relentless.
I genuinely love that. Building a machine specifically to roast your own sales call.
It works, though.
Oh, I bet. You finish a pitch, feeling pretty good about yourself, and the system just pings you and says, mate, you talked for way too long on the pricing slide.
And you completely miss their buying signal.
It is brutal, but your conversion rate would improve so incredibly fast.
It would. The goal is to build automations that make you structurally better at your job, not just faster at doing the wrong things.
Makes sense.
Another brilliant tactile example is how founders are using auto research.
Auto research, right. Historically, that was just a technique researchers used to train foundational models, yeah.
Yes, by having the systems search for their own training data.
The model's essentially teaching themselves.
But now, pragmatic teams are applying the mechanics of auto research directly to their own business metrics.
So it is not just asking a chatbot to find a statistic.
No, it is deploying an autonomous system that continuously looks at your website data, creates a hypothesis about why a specific sign-up button is not converting.
Wait, it writes the hypothesis.
It writes the hypothesis, writes the code to run an A/B test, deploys that test to a small subset of live users, analyzes the incoming data stream, and then automatically pushes the winning variation to production.
All without a human ever clicking a button.
Exactly.
That is wild. It fundamentally changes the unit economics of running a business. You have a tireless optimization engine running in the background.
Working around the clock.
But if the machines are writing the code and running the experiments, how do you even evaluate your human employees?
It feels like the definition of what makes a good engineer is completely changing.
It has to, right?
It does, and that leads to a new operational concept called investment stewardship.
Investment stewardship.
For years, companies treated engineering velocity as a proxy for value. If an engineer shipped a high volume of code or merged a lot of pull requests, they were considered highly valuable.
But when an artificial intelligence can ship infinite amounts of code instantly, human velocity becomes completely meaningless.
Exactly. You do not want your engineers competing with a machine on typing speed.
No, you would lose every time.
Investment stewardship is about measuring and valuing engineers for their true worth, which is their ability to solve complex business problems.
You start tracking the actual revenue impact per engineering hour rather than just looking at the sheer volume of code produced.
Which solves a massive lingering problem in business-to-business software design.
Oh, because right now, design teams get so caught up in shipping complex features requested by the executive buyer.
Right.
That they completely ruin the actual onboarding experience for the end user.
That is a massive friction point. Balancing design for the person writing the check versus the person actually using the software is notoriously difficult.
But teams are overcoming this by using these autonomous systems to reframe user friction into tangible business impacts.
Exactly. When an engineer can use a data harness to clearly articulate exactly how many thousands of dollars in annual recurring revenue are being lost because of a clunky sign-up process,
the entire executive team suddenly prioritizes fixing it.
It translates design friction directly into a financial metric the business understands.
So if we pull all of this together, we're looking at a fundamentally altered reality for the entire tech industry.
A completely new landscape.
Well, a completely new market, really.
Yeah.
The venture capital money is consolidated at the absolute top with 5 massive players.
Because that middle tier of funding is completely gone.
Exactly. And because of that, founders are forced to operate with radical pragmatism. They are flattening their organizations, stripping out middle managers in Dorsey mode, and shifting all their remaining capital into sales and distribution.
They are exploiting legal loopholes to bypass the Apple App Store.
They are skipping the venture capital circus by selling early to massive incumbents.
And they are relying on unified digital harnesses to handle the coding, the analytics, and the continuous optimization of their business.
It is an absolute recalibration of what it takes to build a successful technology company.
The days of endless cheap capital, bloated organizational charts, and massive information asymmetry are over.
Truly over. The future belongs to lean, highly pragmatic teams that leverage these autonomous systems not just as a neat product feature.
But as the core execution engine of their entire operations.
It is a lot to process, but it is also incredibly exciting if you are willing to adapt to the new rules of the game.
It is crucial to understand these underlying mechanics because the entire structure of how we work is being rewritten in real time.
Absolutely. I'm glad we could unpack all of this for you. If you want to stay ahead of all these wild shifts, keep checking out Vocal Technologist. We will always try to give you the signal without wasting your time.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. So I will leave you with this one thought to mull over as you look at your own professional environment. We have talked a lot about entire companies flattening out and relying on autonomous systems to handle the heavy lifting of execution. What happens to your own career trajectory when the traditional corporate ladder loses all its middle rungs and your new boss is just a highly efficient digital assistant?
Spoken Tech for your ears.